Hello you beautiful misfits. Been a while, hasn't it? Apologies for my lengthy absence, but I had to take some time to myself for a while and get my head straight. However, I sure as prolapse inducing buggery wasn't going to miss covering E3. I mean, what better way to test my hastily reconstructed mental fortitude than by diving balls deep into the EA conference. Live from the Hollywood Palladium, this year's EA conference began pretty much identically to last year's, with the standard montage of football, cars, Star Wars and trench warfare. The big red and white countdown also returned, albeit with noticeably fewer creepy subliminal messages about competition, might making right, survival of the fittest and other such. We were also treated to a shitload of drumming from this brigade of beaming burly boys who, quite obviously, really like drumming. So, good for them. I can sit here a while and enjoy their little display of rhythmic pound. So that's how this is going to go, is it, EA? You think just because I've been away for a little while you can take me out with a quick sports game sucker punch right out the gate, huh? Huh? Bring it. Frankly, the only thing about this trailer to ignite even a flicker of interest within the hollow abyss where my soul should be is the appearance of a computer-generated Mahershala Ali of Luke Cage, Hunger Games and Moonlight fame. So I was unsettlingly relieved to see Conference Presentation Unit Designation Andrew Wilson, serial number 2-4601, incept date February 2017, who immediately launched into some more bibble about Madden 18.
That's Madden like you've never seen it.
This version of Andrew was here, as all of his previous iterations were, to formally open the proceedings and, in this particular instance, try and get me hyped for Madden 18.
I might be biased, but I'm pretty sure that's the most innovative Madden we've done in well over a decade.
Nah, I'm pretty sure you're biased. Plus, you can't really call it innovating when all you've done is taken the story mode from FIFA and slapped it onto Madden. Andrew also pimped EA Access, EA's early access program obviously, as well as bigging up the fact that a lot of regular gaming spots like what you and I is were at the event and able to provide feedback right there and then.
We want more of you to be able to experience this moment. For thousands of you in Hollywood this week, we have hundreds of stations for hands-on gameplay.
Andrew also acknowledged some of the criticisms levelled at EA recently, although his general tone seemed somewhat too masochistic at times.
You'll hear it from players, right here. They're here to see new things, to ask questions, to challenge us, to tell us what they like and especially what they don't.
I honestly half expected Andrew here to suddenly pluck someone from the audience, hand them a cat and nine tails and have them whip him repeatedly until the stage ran white with his milky android blood. Alright, I am being somewhat unfair to poor old Andrew here. Thus far he seemed far more relatable and human than he did at previous E3 conferences.
They're going to connect with each other and create content.
Forget what I just said there. Still, well done to the engineers at EA for fine-tuning his emotional response algorithms. Maybe this is where all those missing facial animations in Mass Effect Andromeda disappeared to. After teasing the audience with the promise of 30 minutes of Star Wars Battlefront 2 footage later, Andrew passed the spotlight over to another Andrew. Andrew Gullotta, blue-shirted producer at DICE, standing inside what he called the Creator Cave. Except it's clearly not a bloody cave, is it? It's another area of the conference venue. You liar. Anyway, Andrew's job was to give the signal to an AV engineer to load up a Battlefield 1 montage with a bunch of YouTubers shilling for Battlefield 1, although this clip from YouTube user Burke Black was admittedly very amusing. Andrew was also here to talk about a new expansion for Battlefield 1 called In the Name of the Tsar, which places an emphasis on the Great War's Eastern Front by adding 6 new maps and various units of the Russian army to play with, including the 1st Women's Battalion of Death. Yes, that was a real unit with that actual name, and not something out of Warhammer 40,000. We were then shown a trailer with a downtrodden, vaguely Russian-sounding voiceover talking about "Sky's the colour of hard crimson" and other bleak Tolstoy-esque stuff, over clips of women from the Battalion of Death shanking blokes in the ribs. After that grim taste of the horrors of war, EA's Patrick Söderlund manifested to lighten the mood with "oh fuck me, more bloody sports," which had me bored out of my skull faster than an alien brain parasite riding a miniature bagger 288, so I only managed to catch a few things he said.
Competition. Competition, competition, competition like nothing else.
Sadly, I snapped out of my tedium-induced fugue just in time to consciously process this video, plugging professional EA Sports game players. While obviously intended to portray the pro FIFA and Madden gaming scenes as some holy institution of sacred battle between cool and noble combatants, to my jaded eyes, nearly all the players involved come across as absolutely colossal fucking bellends. So I was curiously relieved when it went straight into a trailer for FIFA 18, although this proved to be only the most temporary of respites before two blokes called Men in Blazers came on stage to talk even more about the footballs. Apparently they do a show about it, although according to this one, either Men in or Blazers, I'm not too sure.
The common thread for us is always football and FIFA.
Oh boy, two things I couldn't care less about. Alright, I'm being a bit unfair to them here. I mean, football's obviously their main passion and it's churlish of me to mock them for it. I mean, what else were they going to talk about, huh? Genetics?
Is there anyone better and more genetically sound than Cristiano Ronaldo?
I sit corrected. Although I do have some doubts about how qualified they are to declare with absolute objective certainty that Cristiano Ronaldo is genetically sound. Are they geneticists in their spare time? Have they mapped his entire genome? What if he has recessive male pattern baldness waiting to come out? Or a predisposition towards Alzheimer's? Their reevesing over Ronaldo didn't end there either.
Could you get anyone better than that?
Well, that man doesn't have a six-pack, he's got an eight-pack.
You're right.
Jam him in spandex and capture his data. That beautiful man.
God, imagine if someone had suddenly thrown Ronaldo himself onto the stage, naked, right there and then. They'd have dropped their pants and fucked him into a coma quicker than you could say Real Madrid. Not that I'm in any way judging them for that, far from it. I think it's beautiful that two men can express their admiration for another man's body without any shame or tutting. And really, who can blame them? He is a handsome chap. The only thing capable of stopping the Cristiano Ronaldo love express was what Men in and Blazers here declared the biggest story in football, which isn't anything to do with Cristiano Ronaldo, or indeed any real person, but about Alex Hunter, the fictional protagonist of FIFA 17 story mode, conveyed to the audience by way of this really quite well crafted blending of fiction and reality, featuring newsreaders, footballers and other peeps discussing protagonist Alex Hunter as though he too were a real flesh and blood person, and not an expensive conglomeration of polygons and texture maps existing purely in a Tron space of light and numbers, which seems a bit much just to tell people FIFA 18 will also have a single player story mode. Mr. Men and Mr. In Blazers here then took their Ronaldo love ball and went home, leaving us all to watch YouTube creator Jesse Wellens oh, he does prank videos apparently. Anyway, as I was saying, Jesse Wellens then proceeds to trip over his words, forget the words he didn't trip over, almost get people's names wrong, and generally die on his arse in real time.
My name is Jesse Wellens, and I am a YouTube creator. So I am here to talk about Need for Speed Payback. If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback,
In his defence, I wouldn't have fared much better live and unscripted without a teleprompter. Unless he did have a teleprompter, in which case that's really fucking embarrassing. Marcus Nilsson, producer on Need for Speed Payback, meanwhile, was far more confident and assured as he spoke about cars, cars, cars and more cars, new cars, fast cars, classic cars you can find, abandoned throughout the game's diverse open world and refurbished to drive around in. All in all, lots of cars, driving around and looking, as my friend Ability Drain would say, very pretty. Patrick Söderlund then returned to talk EA Originals, the publisher's commendable initiative to get smaller, non-AAA games funded and released, with all profits going back to the developers. Presumably after EA's recouped their initial investment, of course, but since these are smaller titles, the initial investment will, on average, be far smaller than your average AAA money hog. It's a genuinely good move EA have done in recent years and one I'm perfectly happy to commend them for. The example that immediately sticks out in everybody's mind is Unravel, which wasn't officially an EA Originals title, but did help EA get the whole shebang off the ground in the first place. Last year's conference meanwhile debuted another lovely looking cutesy game called Faye as one of EA Originals' first titles. So this year I was fearing another attempt at a Yarny moment, another cute adorable passion project with which to pluck the heartstrings of the audience like that banjo song in Deliverance. Fortunately only one of those descriptors applies to A Way Out, this year's EA Original showpiece, since, well, you can't really call a multi-genre couch co-op game about busting out of prison cute and adorable. Passion, however, is something the director and lead writer of A Way Out, Joseph Fares, has in plentiful abundance. His name may be familiar to you if you've played the ruddy, superb Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, a game that left me crying like an infant who'd just been robbed of their ice lolly, because he was writer and director on that too. In fact, the entire team at Hazelight, his new development studio, is comprised almost entirely of the same team that worked on Brothers, which in itself is plenty enough to make me prick up my ears and pay attention. The general gist is that you and a friend or acquaintance play as one of two convicts, Leo or Vincent, and must work together to escape prison and survive beyond. The footage on display did a great job conveying a real sense of player interdependence, as well as the variety of scenarios our plucky jailbirds can find themselves in, such as parkour bits, stealth segments, driving and combat, all part of what Joseph Fares describes as
a co-op game like never before. I know, I mean, I can guarantee that. I know I sound very cocky, but I can't help it because it's true.
Well, yeah, you do sound a bit cocky, but then you also made Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, so I think you've earned the right to just be a little bit cocky. For those of you watching this video alone in a remote lighthouse or Antarctic research outpost, despairing with your face in your hands, weep not. Although A Way Out is designed primarily for split-screen couch or beanbag co-op, you will still be able to play it online if that is your only recourse. So hooray for options! Needless to say, I am rather keen on this one and very much look forward to playing it when it's released in early 2018. Patrick Sutherland reappeared to talk about some of the more tech-oriented stuff EA has under its belt, like Frostbite, its digital platforms, etc., and to mention something called SEED, the Search for Extraordinary Experiences division. Now that might sound like a secret organisation in a low-budget conspiracy thriller on the Sci-Fi Channel, but it's actually a research division within EA looking into things like neural networks and deep learning, ostensibly to make your video game experiences more entertaining. Except the way Patrick describes it kind of makes it sound just a wee bit sinister, in a dystopian technocrat New World Order kind of way.
SEED is a small, stealthy team that work with neural networks, creating deeply sophisticated artificial intelligence on a daily basis. Together, we are building a brand new future. It is vast, dangerous, beautiful, and unexpected. That's just the beginning of how we can combine the latest tech and a vision for something extraordinary.
Okay, confession time, I sort of cheated a wee bit in that last visual skit there.
I'm sorry.
That vast, dangerous, beautiful and unexpected line wasn't actually about SEED, but about Anthem, the new IP from BioWare, of which EA showed absolutely sweet chuffing buggery fuck, besides a big wall and some hefty alien gribblies, promising instead that more would be revealed at the Microsoft conference. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Anthem, you'll have to watch my forthcoming Microsoft conference summary, because I ain't wasting any more time on it in this video. After that anemic teaser came some stuff about, NBA 18. Featuring lots of talk about basketball that flew so far over my head it could deliver supplies to the International Space Station. Seriously, you'd have more luck trying to teach a fish to explore Mars than to get me excited for all that hoopball stuff, no matter how many single player career modes with unlockable gear and stats you chuck in. After this we got one more appearance from Andrew Wilson, before he was dismantled and boxed up for another year, to talk a bit about some nice things EA have done. Genuinely nice things at that. Fuck's sake, I'm not going to snark about millions of dollars going to anti-bullying charities. I'm not a complete prick. Andrew also announced a bunch of free trials on Origin Access, EA Access and PS4, but they'll be well and truly over by the time this video comes out, so moving on. To the big official shiny reveal of Star Wars Battlefront 2, which began with a tweet from your boy John Boyega requesting a single player story campaign, a sentiment mirrored by countless other tweets from countless other people assembled in a big on-screen collage. Janina Gavankar of TV's Sleepy Hollow fame then appeared on stage, escorted by the Empire's finest stormtroopers and pilots, to the tune of the Imperial March. I didn't know whether to be terrified or aroused by this, so I settled on being incredibly jealous instead. Janina, in case you are wondering, is voicing the character of Imperial Agent Iden Versio in Star Wars Battlefront 2's single-player story campaign, hence why she gets to strut on stage to the Imperial March accompanied by stormtroopers while I sit here in front of a computer and I'm not crying. In all fairness to Janina, she was an entertaining presenter, and the job of persuading fans that Star Wars Battlefront 2 wouldn't skimp on content this time is itself rather unenviable. In fact, that was the very first issue addressed, with Janina promising on behalf of EA that the sequel will have 3 times the content of Star Wars Battlefront 1. So that's a game and a half then? There then came the requisite collection of Battlefront playing YouTube and Twitch talking heads, like Nukem Dukem here, in a pre-recorded segment describing how EA flew in a bunch of Battlefront players to elicit their feedback on features, weapons and other stuff. Contrary to all the big talk about single-player content earlier, the emphasis of this segment was very much on multiplayer. And not just any multiplayer either. Prequel trilogy multiplayer, with Republic clone troopers squaring off against fucking separatist fucking Roger bullshit battle fucking droids. On the bright side, the game will be covering all Star Wars eras, so you don't have to fuck around on Naboo if you really don't want to. The game will also be supported by seasons of free DLC, adding new maps and heroes, although there will be other digital knickknacks and level boosts to spend money on if you're so inclined. It was also nice to see space combat highlighted as a main feature of the game, although I hope DICE have reworked it somewhat. I heard the fighter combat in Star Wars Battlefront was just a wee bit on the crap side at launch, so if they've nailed it for the sequel then I'll be more keen about possibly maybe jumping in myself. Because let's face it, what are the chances of any publisher or developer pouring money into a new dedicated Star Wars space combat game? You'd have more like finding a Tusken Raider on Hoth. After that came a brief appearance from John Boyega himself, pimping some free Finn and Captain Phasma DLC. And then the conference segued into a 30-minute long Star Wars Battlefront 2 multiplayer showcase that I skipped through in 5-minute chunks after the first 10 minutes. There were no closing remarks from Android Wilson, no farewell message, nothing resembling a traditional firm end to a conference. It just trailed off into gameplay footage. So I might as well wrap this video up with my final verdict, eh? Well, it's an EA conference, isn't it? I know some of you like the sports games and might be a wee bit disappointed that I didn't give them more attention, but I'm really not the person to cover them for you. Asking me to do that is like asking a dog about quantum physics. All you get out of it is a confused dog and no satisfactory answers. Which doesn't leave much to consider really. I don't own Battlefield 1, so the announcement of an expansion hardly set my Eastern Front ablaze, while the teaser for Anthem was so meagre and pointless they may as well not have bothered. Meanwhile, Star Wars Battlefront 2 piqued my interest much more than I actually thought it would. I'm hardly bursting any blood vessels in sheer eagerness to play it, but I'd be willing to give it a shot, although I do somewhat pity the poor buggers who jumped feet first into the previous one. The star of the show for me personally was, without a doubt, A Way Out. I loved Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons and am very keen to see what the creators do with a bigger budget. I do have some concerns about whether Hazelight can balance such a variety of disparate gameplay styles in one package without the whole thing falling to bits. But it'd be fantastic if they pull it off, especially if they can bind it all together with a strong and interesting story. But enough about all that, you're waiting for me to declare EA's conference the worst one of this year's E3, aren't you? Well, I'm going to have to disappoint you, I'm afraid, because it isn't. Which is just as much a surprise to me as I'm sure it is to you. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it was a good conference. Gods no! It was exactly what I've come to expect from an EA conference, and my expectations were low to begin with, yet they managed to pleasantly surprise me a little bit. Showing an interesting looking indie game in the form of A Way Out, at least pretending to have listened to player feedback vis-a-vis Star Wars Battlefront, revealing a brand new IP in the form of Anthem even if the teaser was rather lackluster, and for not making the sports segments too intolerable, thanks mainly to 2 men in blazers unashamedly declaring their carnal desire for Ronaldo. As for which conference does win my completely arbitrary worst of E3 award, well, you'll have to wait for the rest of my videos, won't you? Assuming, of course, this wretched British summer heat doesn't completely cook me alive in my own skin. All being well, I should have videos covering the Microsoft, Sony, Ubisoft, Bethesda and Nintendo conferences for your viewing pleasure, as and when I get them written, edited and uploaded. And as an added bonus, I'll also be covering Devolver Digital's sly, tongue-in-cheek joke of a non-conference. Spoiler alert, it's not half as funny as people say it is. But like I said, you'll have to wait a little while longer. So until the next instalment of the Pixel Burn E3 2017 Blitzkrieg, you can go now.